for your time and attendance at our webinar, Sage Intacct for Real Estate. My name is Dom Pernai, and I am one of the presenters this morning. We also have my son, Dominic Pernai, on here as well. He will be the one who starts us off. Our goal today is to introduce you to Sage Intacct geared for real estate organizations. And with that, I will let Dominic take it over.
Excellent, thank you. So just want to reiterate and say, hello, thank you for taking the time out of your day for this first look at the new Intacct for Real Estate. As you were told, my name is Dominic, and I'm going to take you through just a couple things on the Intacct platform. We'll look at a few of the base modules, just very, very quick discussion about them. And then once we've done that and talked a little bit about what makes Sage Intacct such a good partner for your software, we'll kind of move things over to Dom Senior, and he's going to walk you through the new real estate module. So one thing I will ask is that as you're watching the overview, if you have any questions, if you can please just enter them in the chat, we'll make sure that we address all of them at the end. Thanks. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is how Sage Intacct is a true multi-tenant web-based platform. What this means is you're no longer going to have to work with any infrastructure needs. That's all going to be done on the back end by Sage. The other really nice thing is that because it's web-based, anytime you have an internet connection, you're going to be able to have access to your data. So we are also what's known as a best-in-class cloud platform. That means that across the ERPs in our space, we are rated the highest, and accounting is really what we do well. So we want to be able to have you work with any other CRM platform, whether that be Salesforce or Sage CRM or another payroll company if you outsource payroll to like an ADP or something like that. We already have pre-built integrations with them. There's actually already over 250 pre-built integrations with Sage Intacct, and that is all due to what is called our open API. And that's going to allow you to connect to any number of different systems that you may have a specific need for. And I do just want to talk a little bit more about how we are best in class. We're not just saying that. According to G2, we've been the leader in customer satisfaction since 2015, and that's based on over 2,000 independent reviews. We've received highest scores in satisfaction, product direction, net promoter score, and that means that most users are more likely to recommend our product to others versus any other vendor. And one other thing that we are incredibly proud of is that our system is the only system preferred by the AICPA. And as you know, they essentially wrote the book on accounting. Every US company follows their standards. They have over 400,000 members, and they've used all the accounting systems that are out there. So according to them, ours is the only one they prefer. They've never represented any other product, and we're extremely proud that they hold us in that high regard. And before we get into the demo, I just want to talk a little bit more about Sage Intacct. So Sage Intacct has always been a cloud-based solution. It's never been on anyone else's server. It's only been in the Sage backbone, so you know that it's going to work the way that it's supposed to. You're always going to have all of your data at any time from any device. So if somebody needs to do any kind of submittal or approval, they're going to be able to do that wherever they are. Modern interface, as you're about to see, it's pretty easy to navigate. One of the main things that sets Intacct apart and allows it to be true multi-tenant is because of how they have their core financials, which is what everything is built on. What they also have are these industry specific solutions. So you'll notice that you see construction and real estate up there in that top quadrant, and that's because somebody that's working in hospitality doesn't have the same needs as, you know, somebody working in healthcare or even construction. They're all very unique to their particular vertical. So we've built this around that kind of need. There are additional modules that can be added on. So, you know, if you wanted to handle some inventory management, or if you wanted to do some additional budgeting and planning, all of that can be added onto your base core financials and your industry specific vertical. And as you know, today we're here to talk about construction and real estate. So with that, I'm going to get us into the software. Okay, so first thing you'll notice is that we open right to a dashboard. This is going to look, you know, this is that modern interface that we were talking about before. I've chosen to use the project performance dashboard because my instance is mainly built around construction. So what you'll notice is that we have our active job counts. We know what our projected margins are going to be. If I want to see things in a graph, if I want any kind of report to run every time I come to this page, that's what you're going to find here. So you're going to be able to specify the date, the entity or location. If there's a specific job, there's actually multiple dashboards that you can create, and you can have it open to whatever one you prefer. But yeah, so you'll also notice that this is really important. So top level is a roll up of all of your entities. So, you know, we have development, you know, general construction, residential, and on our top level, that is going to automatically roll all of this information up for us without ever having to export anything and re-import. It's all going to be done right here inside the software. And just to show you how quickly this can be done, so I've gone from my dashboard. I wanted to see that same information, but I only wanted to see it for general construction in Dallas. That's all of that information in real time. So very powerful tool to have. You're going to have up to the minute financials, and you know, we're very proud that we're able to do things that quickly. So I do want to touch just very quickly again on some of the modules inside of Intacct. You know, you're going to see that you're going to have your standard base modules. I have jobs in here as well, but I do want to look at the financial reports that are pre-built in the system. And you'll notice that you can process and store them. You can go through and you can run it right online. You can export to CSV, PDF, Excel. All of that is done, and that is standard functionality inside of the system. So we have all of these pre-built reports. As you can see, there's a couple pages of them. But what we also do is create custom financial reporting. So if there's something that you want to see, we make sure that we make that happen. And we have our trial balance, you know, everything that you would expect to see inside of your accounting package. Accounts payable, you know, we've got our bills. Are they approved? Do we want to pay them? Do I need to set up a recurring bill? You know, what do our recurring transactions look like? So we can do all of this, you know, pretty easily. And one of the other nice things to note is that for your AP routing, we actually have a pre-built integration with the new TimberScan Titanium product, and that is also web-based. So if you are still working on a server-based software for both of those, you're actually able to move both of them to the cloud. They already integrate, and you're going to be able to view invoices. You're going to be able to handle all of your, you know, approvals and things like that. So really important stuff to have, and it just becomes one all-encompassing system. So we also have our accounts receivable. You know, we've got invoices, things like that, everything that you'd expect to see. Also jobs for anybody that's a developer. this is probably where you would spend most of your time on the construction aspect. As you can see, we can set up our cost codes. We have the ability to generate invoices right off of a job. If we have timesheets, all of this is done right here. You know, we can always add time and expenses and inventory control as well. But I did just want to show you the job setup. So we do have, you know, jobs, sub jobs, and you can continue to go down, I believe, 5 levels of sub job. So, you know, very important stuff. But that was really everything that I wanted to show you guys on my end today. And I'm going to hand it over to Dom Senior so he can take you through the real estate platform.
Thanks very much, Tom. So from my perspective here, what I want to do now is I'd like to take you through, I want to make sure we get to the right monitor. There we go. I want to take you through the product from the real estate side. So what you'll notice here first is I've opened up into a dashboard, and much like we just saw from Dominic, I have the ability here to see this at my top level. So from my top level perspective, I've got my performance cards at the top. And what this is telling me is what's happened with rent this month. Well, so far we've billed $123,000 in rent this month, and that's up $46,000 from the previous month. By the way, once again, because we're solely web-based, obviously I can easily zoom in here, make this a little easier for everybody to read. And also from an accounts receivable perspective, that has increased this month as well as our cash balance. I've then got a little graph that shows our P&L revenue versus net income. I've also got a cash flow statement. So if I want to drill in on any of these, I can very easily drill in and now pull up the list of all of the revenue accounts that have accounted for that revenue for this month. And then I can continue to drill in and see the detailed transactions that make it up. And then obviously from there, when I drill in, I get to see each tenant and each dollar amount for each tenant as well. So it's very easy to get to the level of detail that I need inside the financial system for all of this information. I'm doing it all straight from a dashboard. I can also choose to do this for a particular property if that's what I'd like to do as well. So if I go in here and say I want to do this for the United Center and apply it, now it redraws that dashboard just for that one particular property. And I can give it an as of date. If I wanted to see it as of 12/31, I could easily do that if I'd like to. So that is how we're able to see all of our financial data. When I click on the property management, and you'll notice when I look on my list, I simply have real estate as a choice in here. That launches our real estate module. And inside those real estate modules, now I have the ability to go through and set up all of my different information. So one of the things that was important is that I wanted to make sure that we preserved the lease-based functionality inside our Sage product. For those of you in attendance that have used Sage 300 CRE in the past, you'll notice that we kept some of that nomenclature in place. And the reason for that is because one of the hallmarks of the Sage property management, now real estate system, is that ability to be truly lease-based. There are a number of systems out there where you create the property, section it into units, and then you move tenants in and out of those units. We're a little bit different. We create the property, section it into units, and then we have a separate database of tenant information. And we use the lease functionality to draw that information together, because now it allows us to have one tenant with multiple spaces or multiple tenants for one space. So in a sublease, potentially COVID world, now I have the ability to, within my lease, track my main tenant, who is rent responsible, along with all of the sublease information there as well. As I go through to do these types of setups, I go to my setup screen and notice I have properties, units, tenants. If I click on properties, it gives me a list of each one of my properties. It tells me what type of property it is, how many square feet it is, and its status. Is it active or historical or in process? Now, if I go to a given property, what you'll notice up here is I can filter. So I can have a full list of all of my properties. And if I want to see all the properties that are part of mixed use, I can simply go in and type the word mixed, and now it'll find any mixed use properties there for me. These search screens are throughout the real estate module. So when we're looking at a list of leases, I have the ability to type in a portion of the lessee's name and have it find their information for me. I'm going to go ahead and clear my filters. And let's just go into this first Blackhawk building. I can go into it in an edit mode or a view mode. So we do have view only capability. I'm going to hit edit. And now up at the top, it says edit property. It has some subset of information there for me: general, addresses, square footage, and so on. And then all the way on the right-hand side, I've got the ability to both save or duplicate this information. So if I want to set up a new property, model it on an old property or on an existing property, I can simply hit duplicate. It will copy all of that information onto a new property screen for me, and I can set up the information that I need. Once I've done this, now I give it the property name. I tell it which entity it talks to in the general ledger and what type of property it is, chosen from a pull-down list, how many units, units occupied, units leased. That's all system maintained for me. I don't have to build any of that information in. When was our last scheduled charges? And what's our current month end, our fiscal year end? When we look at reporting and we want to see what is our square feet, and when we look at dollars per square foot, which square footage do I want to see that based upon? And do I want to see that on an annual basis or a monthly basis? When does occupancy begin and end? We can track all of that information here for us quite easily. And when does occupancy start, with the actual move-in date or the lease start date, and when does it end as well? So that's what we track under the General tab. Under the Address tab, now in here, I can establish different types of addresses and track that contact information for each of those. One of the things that Sage Intacct has as a hallmark of its system is smart rules and smart events. That's the ability to have the system automatically generate notifications and reminders to people. The real estate module will interface with all of those capabilities as well. So therefore, you can notify multiple people of different events that take place inside the system. Next is square footage. And here we tell it the different types of square footage, their value, and the as of date. The reason for tracking the as of date is if we have a change in the common area and maybe our loss factor has changed, we want to track those new square footages so that as we create new leases, we have the proper denominators for our common area expense billbacks, our expense recoveries. And once again, adding these quite simply, just clicking add new, picking from our pull down list, putting in the value, and what is the as of date for that value. Next is charge controls. What things do we actually want to bill the tenants for? One thing that's very nice inside Sage Intacct Real Estate is the ability to track all of your lease information in here, and all of the accounts receivable information is handled where it should be in the accounts receivable module. So you're not going to go through all that detailed account receivable processing inside the real estate module. You'll do it right inside the accounts receivable module where it belongs. That allows for a very nice separation of duties between operations, property management, and accounting. But in here, as a property manager, I want to come in and grab different items to bill and not have to know the general ledger accounts that are affected by that. So I am simply coming in here and picking from my detailed list what items need to be billed, and then the system is automatically tracking the general ledger ramifications of that for me. Next, deposits. What types of security deposits do we have? Are they refundable or not? What sort of interest do we need to accrue, and so on and so forth. And then whenever it comes to any information that is general ledger related, there's search features. So if I just simply type the name of the account for me, it will find that information, and I can pick the needed account here. Next, we see late fees. And in late fees, we have the ability to come in and tell it what's the minimum lease balance that we want to make sure someone has before we charge a fee. We want to suppress charges under a certain dollar amount, and we're going to bill it maybe based upon the remaining balance. Then I can establish all the different detailed steps within here. So maybe I want to charge a fee or an interest-based calculation, and then tell it, well, how often does that get charged? Does that get charged daily, monthly, or every so many days? I'm going to go in and say, let's charge that monthly. And I want to do a greater of a flat amount or a percentage. And that flat amount is $100 or 5%. We'll give them 5 grace days. So therefore, on the 6th of the month, they're late, and the system has the ability to generate that late fee at that point in time. Now that's simply the first step. I can build as many additional steps into this as needed. Okay. Next, management fees. So we have the ability to go through and build our management fees, and based on either upon a flat fee or a percentage of a calculation. So what's very common is to have a certain percentage, 3.5%, 4%, 5% of all receipts that are not security deposits or expense reimbursements. And the system supports that. And of course, it interfaces that now over to the accounts payable module. So therefore, now the accounts payable system will then have that invoice ready to pay the management company automatically. We're simply establishing all of that information here and identifying who's the AP vendor and what general ledger accounts are affected with that. And once again, I do not have to know the account numbers. As I simply start to type it, it finds the account for me. We then can track tax information, so we can put in all the information related to the tax parcel, including the land value, the building value, the improvement values, and so on, and track all of that detail in here. Our certificates of insurance get tracked as well. We track what type of insurance we need to have, the insurance company it's tracked through, the policy information, who's the agent, and any of their contact information. When does that go into effect? Maybe it went into effect last November and it expires in October. So you can see we've got a very modern interface here available for us. So it's tracking and ease of use here. Any liability coverages we have, what's our deductible, and premium information. So that's how we establish all of our property information. I'll go ahead and hit save. And it's updated that property for me. Now, if I go into setup and go to units, at the unit information, we're really just tracking some basic space information. So we want to know what property are we in, what's the unit, what type of space is it, and square footage information. So we're going to track all of that here. And once again, this is where the duplicate feature can be very handy. If I've got a number of these units, now I can simply hit duplicate and come in and say, this is now unit 9801-C. And we'll copy and paste that into the address information. If the square footage is and everything else is the same, I'm done. I can simply just hit save, and now it's added that additional unit into the system for me very quickly. So we've got our property, we've sectioned it into units. We do need to track some basic tenant information, mainly for contact information. If you notice, whenever I come in and pull up a tenant, it has their name, the lease they're on. It also has their the balance that they owe. So it is pulling that back from the accounts receivable system for us. If I go into an edit mode, you'll notice it's basic contact information here. Now I can duplicate this and add as many of these as I need to, obviously, for contact info. And that's really all there is from a tenant perspective. The majority of the information is going to be tracked in our lease. So we'll hit our leases. Once again, I can filter. So if I want to look at, any certain leases, I can look based upon their name, the property that they're in, when did they move in, what's their status, all of those types of things here. So if I just type all, it finds that one lease that meets that filter. I'm going to go into Esposito's Italian Deli, and it has here now the property, the lessee name, the rental info. So in this case, there are 2 tenants attached to that lease and 2 spaces. Now, when did the lease start? When does it end? And when's their move-in date? So we'll track all of that. Here's their recurring charge information. So once again, it's grabbed each one of those items from the property and allows me to go through and add in here. I can identify which suite we want that charge to be part of, so that when I look at a rent roll, I have it broken down by suite for me. And I'll identify this as part of unit 200. And now I can build my full rent schedule here as needed. Tell it to bill it monthly and say it's the base amount. And then if I want to add additional steps on, I just add new and fill that information in. By the way, you're getting a little bit of a taste from a user interface. Whenever we have a field that's required, we're going to highlight right on the screen that it's required. If you somehow miss it, we're going to turn that tab red so that you know that there's missing information on a given tab. We'll just do this quickly for the following year and add that there. So we've got that information all set up for us here. Tell it it's part of our rentable square feet. And then we also have the ability to track our recovery settings in here. So I can tell it how often to process this recovery. I want to do it for this year. And what expense categories should we use? Well, maybe I want to group some expenses and I want to put them under the title of repairs. So I'll go in and say, let's call this repairs. Is it fixed or does it vary with occupancy? So if we're in a lease up phase for a new property, I might say it varies with occupancy so we can gross that expense up. And is it subject to an admin fee? And now what square footages should we use when we build our numerators and our denominators to do our CAMREC? I'm going to use rentable square feet for both. I do have the ability to key in a manual percentage. So if for some reason it doesn't follow any of the square footages, you can key that in. And then it says, what GL accounts would you like it to use? Well, now in here, I just begin to go through the chart of accounts and add each one of those repairs accounts right in here. Very simple, very easy. Then the system will track what the actual expenses are as we go along. And I can then go in and build in what's my base years, what's my stop, what's my cap, do I need a multiplier? I can build all of that information in. I'll go ahead and hit OK, and now it saves that information, and I'm ready to track all of those CAM recoveries as part of my lease. We've talked about late fees. The checklist is the ability to track what things need to happen when a new lease is started or terminated. The important piece here is we tag those now to contacts. And because of smart rules and smart events, we can notify those contacts that they have those outstanding items to be done via email. Security deposits, they've got a refundable security deposit, or do they have a letter of credit? We track all of the information there as well. The certificate of insurance for the tenant, we can identify what fields are required fields. So as an example here, if I go in and get rid of my expiration date, if I try to leave that tab, notice the insurance tab turns red. So from a user interface perspective, we want to let people know that we are missing information and where we're missing it. So it identifies that tab as missing, and now it highlights the field. So I'm going to go in and do this for next year. Let's say end of February next year. And then what options do we have? So in this case, this lease has a renewal option. When's our notification date? Because then we've got our tenant email and our property manager email highlighted here. So the system will automatically notify them when we hit this notification date and track all of that. So now we've got all of our lease information in here and saved. We're ready to move on. Oh, I have to put in this. So notice it prevented me from saving because I was missing a required field. So now it's updated that information for me. Now, just to show you here briefly, we're going to do one other piece. We're going to create a new lease by duplicating an existing lease. We'll identify that. Who's our tenant? Let's go with this. And we'll get rid of that one. And then what space is it for? We'll identify that. We've got the same lease start and end dates, recurring charges. We're going to get rid of insurance, and we're going to get rid of that guy. So now we'll come in here and say, who do we want to bill? What unit is it for? So we can quickly and easily do all of this information. We've got our monthlies here ready to go. We got our base rent here ready to go. Good to go. And we identify the information that we need. Maybe this renewal option is different, so I want to delete it and add a new one in. But otherwise, I can save what I've done, and I've got that new lease set up in the system here for me. And now you'll notice it's got it out here as future, and do I want to activate it or delete it? If I hit activate, Now it takes me into that screen to go ahead and activate this lease. It's warning me that I already have other current leases in that unit. I'm going to go ahead and activate this with an April 1 date. So it's got it all ready for me to go. First full charge is going to be May 1. And I can simply just hit activate. And now that lease is in the system, ready to be billed. So that's how we establish the property, the unit, the tenant, the lease. Really, at this point, I've done all of my lease administration. So now from here, what I want to do next is generate my scheduled charges. So if I come in and do these, I'm actually going to utilize May 1 because I've been utilizing some of the other months already as I've gone through this. I meant to do that through May 31st. And we'll put it from an accounting perspective into May. And now it shows me, do you want to do it for all properties or certain properties? Obviously, I can pick and choose. I'm going to go ahead and say all, generate my preview. And now it shows me for each building, all of those leases that are due to be billed and the total of those charges here for me. So very easy to see that. Notice even my new lease, Crawford's Fish, shows up and has its charges ready to go right in here. All right, we're going to hit cancel, and I'm going to say, let's do that again for May, but we're only going to do it for one property. And I can key this information in as well if that's what I want to do. Don't have to pick it from there. Generate preview. Everything looks good. We hit generate charges. And now it takes that information and sends that over to accounts receivable for me right at that time. So all of those charges have been successfully set to accounts receivable. So now if we come in here and we go in and we go to accounts receivable and we go to tenants, I've got all of that information brought over here for me. I can drill in on any of these given tenants and see what makes up their outstanding charges here for me. So I've got all their charges, all their payments, everything right in here. All right, let's go back to property management. So now we've set up our lease, we've generated our charges, we've kind of got all of that set and ready to go. Let's take a quick look at a report. We'll grab a rent roll here. We'll do it for, yeah, that's probably a good one. Say we want to do it as a March one. And now it shows each space. It's got the total charges for that property. Whoops. And it's got the square footage. It's fully occupied. And I can drill in on any of these and see all of their lease information at the top and all of their charge information added on. It shows me the monthly charge for the per square foot, the annual charge for the per square foot, and then when are the next increases coming on any of those line items. So very quick, very simple, very easy. All of these get sent automatically to PDF. We are building all of the standard reports that Sage 300 CRE had in here. So you'll have the same bank of reporting in Sage Intacct Real Estate as you had inside Sage 300 CRE. So from here, now we've established everything about the property. We've got all of our information here. The next thing to talk about is under tools. You can actually build the recoveries that I showed in here as a template, and then that information copies over automatically when you're inside a given lease. You can pick which template you'd like the system to utilize to pull that information along. Okay. All right. Lastly, if we go back into the AR module, this is where you manage that full receivable. So when I go in and look at invoices, here's all of the invoicing that has been sent over from the real estate module. So you may notice some of these have May 1 dates. Those are the ones that I just did a minute or two ago. And I can look at any of this information that I'd like to by just opening it up. And it shows all the header information about the invoice. And it's got all the details of everything to be billed with it. So obviously that updates my GL all in one fell swoop, and I can manage the receivable in here. So now if I come in and say, let's receive a payment, it says, what type of receipt do you want to do? Which bank account is it going into? How are they paying us? So if they paid us with ACH, who's the tenant? And we'll grab somebody that I know is funny. I can put in how much did we receive? Let's do a little bit less than that. And I can pick which invoices I want to apply those against. So I can select those and add them to my screen. And now it identifies how much is being paid against each one. And I can drop in the correct payment amount in here. So it becomes that simple because down here at the bottom, it's got the total here. So it lets us know exactly what we need left, what we have left to do. It's got the amount available to apply here. If that's good, I can, and I want to do another one, I simply hit post in new. Otherwise, I simply just hit post. So as I was saying, kind of our overall here is we utilize Sage Intacct Real Estate to do all the lease administration and track all of the detail there. And then we manage the receivable inside the accounts receivable module. Also, this gives us access to tenant portals. So now tenants have the ability to simply use a website to track their balance, make their payments, all of those types of things as well. That's part of our native functionality by working with Sage Intacct. All right, that's really everything we wanted to cover this morning. I'm going to flip it back to Dominic.
Excellent.
I'll monitor the chat here. It looks like we don't have any questions. I guess that means we must have done a pretty good job, Dom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So you can go ahead and close us out.
Beautiful. So thanks for all that great information. And we did just want to say thanks to everybody again for coming out and watching our webinar today. We are going to put this up on our YouTube channel. There is also, a few other videos just about Intacct as well. So if you had some other questions, we are here. Please feel free to subscribe to that channel. We're always going to be putting new things out on it. And we also have our info@ethosystems.com email. Any kind of question that you have later, if it just pops into your head, shoot it over and we'll make sure somebody gets back to you right away. Always feel free to give us a call as well. But yeah, that's everything we have. And thank you again for taking the time to see this first look at real estate.
Thanks very much. And thank you for your comments. Have a great day.